All right, guys, so we have my 2025 GSX-R. No, it's not a GSX-R, it's a GSX-8R, a Gixator. But we're going to do a little video on this guy, and it's pretty cold out, not too bad, but it's probably the last decent day for the winter here. It's 50 degrees and sunny, and we're going to start this guy, and doo-doo-doo. My cat Simon just ran inside, or he wants to go inside. There he is. Let's see Symes. Simon doesn't recognize me, or do you, with the helmet? There you go, Symes. There you go, Symes. Yay! You want to go inside? Go ahead. Go ahead. There you go. Simon is inside. And let's kind of talk a teeny bit about why I'm doing this video. So we have a blue 2025 GSX-8R, and we have around 3,500 miles on it. And if you notice, my full system Akrapovic is now not on the bike. I have a stock exhaust. So I put the stock exhaust back on, and before that I had a full system Akrapovic, a stage 2 DNA air filter. I had V-cycle nut David over there flash my ECU, and little stuff here and there, like the throttle lock and stuff like that. But I went ahead, because I'm going to sell this probably eventually sooner than later, and I really didn't care too much about the Akrapovic. It wasn't that big of a deal to me, and I figured try to just kind of get ready and wean away from this bike. So I put the stock exhaust on, long story short. I kept the stage 2 DNA air filter because that's really where you get the most gains. And I had David reflash my ECU to the stock exhaust and the stage 2 DNA air filter. So this bike actually runs pretty well still. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit about that when we get on the bike and tell you what the real difference is. But I don't think many people have actually talked about flashing the ECU and keeping the stock exhaust on it and putting a stage 2 DNA air filter in it. So let's go ahead and ride it and see how it actually works and performs. I normally wear a little head wrap, but the head wrap won't fit with this mount, with the chin mount, or with this helmet with the chin mount. So I'm going to try to deal with just my Corsair X helmet. I'm pretty bundled up. Leather, oh my goodness. Kind of a tight squeeze. I got my Nelson rig bag on here. This is the Commuter Sport Super Killer bag. I also have in here a DJI Mini 5 Pro, my sunglasses, a drink, my wallet, little tire pressure gauge, blah, blah, blah. But this bag is pretty rock star. And, oh my goodness, this is literally my last ride for the season, most likely. So hopefully everything goes well, and I figure this is my last chance to do a little video and share a bit about what I just did to this bike, meaning reflash it, remove the Akrapovic full system, which most people wouldn't do. They would keep, obviously, the improvement exhaust, and that's that. So I am never the norm. That is just kind of how I roll and how life seems to kind of unfold for me, whether it's right or wrong. But it gives me an opportunity to talk about something that probably nobody else has talked about. And we're going to ride a 2025 GSX-8R with the stage 2 DNA air filter, a reflashed ECU by David at V-cycle nut with the stock exhaust. So here we go. There's Amazon. So far, so good. Got to be mindful of our tires and everything because it is colder out and the roads are slicker and colder and leaves all over, and just got to be extra careful warming up these guys. But I rode this a little bit yesterday and froze my butt off, and what I was kind of realizing from the ride is that there isn't a super noticeable difference. Of course, the exhaust note changed. It's not as throaty, but at the same time, let me crack it a little bit even though it's cold. I think the audio sounds a teeny bit better. But actually the exhaust note still isn't horrible. You could still hear the flow of the air filter, and again, the air filter is what's going to give you the most gains. So it's going to obviously be a nice combo with the exhaust and the air filter and the flash and the lightness of the weight savings from putting on an aftermarket exhaust and getting rid of this heavy stock exhaust. But I'll tell you what, as an inexpensive option, just flashing your ECU and getting an air filter is not a bad way to go about it. I think I may actually turn around and go the opposite way. Hold on one second. Okay. I should warm up these tires a little bit, as I said. I keep traction control on one. You know, we can kind of get the sides warmed up a little bit. But if you hear, the exhaust definitely still has an exhaust note to it. So it doesn't sound quiet. It's not like a silencer where you basically hear nothing. It definitely comes to life and sounds pretty darn good. So I'll get on the gas a little bit. It's warmed up. And you can see it still gets up and goes. So even with the stock exhaust on, the air filter and the flash is basically doing a pretty significant amount to help the power and the power delivery throughout the rev range. Now with the Akrapovic exhaust on it, I would say it was a bit snappier and probably a bit more power. Not a lot, but a little bit more punch throughout the rev range. So it just kind of shaved a little bit off the top end. I took it out yesterday. The bike got to like 132, I believe. And normally you can probably hit around 140. So there's that. So it's going to take a little bit off the top end and probably shave a little bit of power off the entire thing. Let's see, I'll take traction control off for kicks. And let's see if we spin up a little bit. Now, tires heated up a little bit. Try to do a little wheelie, but it can still wheelie the same way. It still has an exhaust note to it, and it still feels pretty darn good. It definitely is not as warm without that head wrap on that I got from Revzilla, but I mean, this thing still moves out. And really, it's a great bike from 0 to 100. So, that is really all you need to be doing on the street is 0 to 100 for the most part. Let's cruise around one of these turns. I'm going to put traction control back onto 1. I can do that on the fly super quickly. Gonna cruise. But this thing, regardless of the stock exhaust, still feels great, still feels strong, and still feels like a sport bike. And honestly, I could barely even tell the difference between the Akrapovic and the stock exhaust. If you're on the racetrack, sure, but if you're on the street, it's not that big of a deal. Of course, most people will want to get the stock exhaust off just because that's the first obvious visual or sign that you've done something to your bike. But I'm at a point in my life where I really don't care. To me, less is actually in a way more, and I prefer the silence or the quieter side of the bike. for a bike like this, if I was on 1000R or something, yeah, I would definitely take off the silencer. But so I would say this is a cool combo that a lot of people aren't even aware of as a possibility. Just get an inexpensive Stage 2 DNA air filter for like $150. Send David your ECU. That's probably $350, and call it a day. Let's try to do a little wheelie. A little one. And that's really it. I mean, there's not a ton to talk about. I'm going to try to ride today and just not focus on the video, and obviously I don't want to make this too long. But without the Akrapovic, this bike still has good power throughout the rev range and still feels good. And let me see, make sure there's no cop or anything. That's the great thing with the rural, it's pretty darn forgiving. Too fast. If you're thinking about buying a GSX 8R and you don't want to spend a lot of money right out of the gate, I would put the money into an ECU flash, get the Stage 2 filter, maybe get the Atlas throttle lock, throw on a Nelson rig tail bag, and wait. You know, decide what exhaust. I actually prefer the way it looks here. I'm going to stop over here and we're just going to kind of take a peek at the bike. Let's get off the bike for a second. Okay. And take a look at how it is without the full system. So as you see, the bike still looks pretty darn good. I mean, you don't have the exhaust pipe that's kind of coming up out here, but it really maintains a clean look and just looks pretty darn good. I mean, look at that. It's got the Nelson rig tail bag. I got a drone in there. Didn't have to spend money on an exhaust, although I already did. And that's for sale, so you know I got a perfect condition Akrapovic exhaust system that I will sell for probably $1,200. There's nothing wrong with it. Ready to go, Chicago located. And yeah, I think it still looks badass. It still looks like a nice bike, and it still performs. So really, that's it, guys. Know that that's a possibility. Stock exhaust, Stage 2 DNA air filter, ECU flash by David at V-Cycle Nut, Nelson rig commuter sport tail bag, Atlas throttle lock for the win. And that's it, guys. Aloha. Bye.